April is Autism Awareness Month, and having family members within my family that have autism and knowing many amazing parents out there as well, you want what's best for your children and making sure that they're getting the education, the behavioral health that they need. But during COVID-19, is it even possible to do just that? How do you keep them on track?
That's right, Sean. It's a great question. Here with the answers is licensed psychologist Dr. Ivan Roenick. Thank you for joining us today. How are you, sir?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm doing very well.
Fantastic. So, listen, you definitely have your finger on the pulse of how this current crisis is impacting families with children with autism. What is different about this time for folks who have someone with autism in their family?
Absolutely. It's a difficult time, and I did want to come on because April is Autism Awareness Month. It started back in the 1970s as Autism Awareness Day, and it's now expanded to Autism Awareness Month. And this month, this year in particular, it celebrates the differences among individuals with autism, because there can be a large spectrum,
Yeah.
a large series of presentations and symptoms that kids and adults with autism might present with. A lot of times, parents of kids with autism spectrum disorder have therapists coming into the home, and they provide face-to-face behavioral therapy. It's referred to as applied behavioral analysis, or ABA therapy. Now, these therapists, they can come to the home sometimes for 10 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours a week or so, and they provide behavioral modification services. Now, given the COVID-19 outbreak, of course, the CDC and the local governments have set out a series of guidelines that have impacted ABA services. And so face-to-face treatment is now limited to a great degree. And many of the agencies and clinics in town who were providing ABA services face-to-face are no longer providing those services. So in lieu of that, I did want to come on to give parents some basic tips about what they can do, and share some resources about places they can turn. Broadly speaking, I think it is important for parents to be honest about what's going on in our world currently, and to explain to their children at their developmental level what is going on, and reassuring them that in time, they will go back to school, they will see their friends again, and the current situation will go back to a semblance of normalcy. So I
Yeah.
think that is important. Um, Structure, providing a structured environment for their kids, I think is also very important. Setting out a schedule that the kids can see on the fridge or on the dining room table. A lot of times individuals with autism spectrum disorder, they have difficulty transitioning and adapting to any kinds of unforeseen changes or
Yeah.
events that might come up. So I think setting out a structured schedule would be a great idea, and having that schedule somewhere where the kids can see them would also be a good idea. Also, preparing them for any kind of transitions that might be coming up. So just mentioning them to them, oh, at 2 o'clock, we're going to be doing this, or at 3 o'clock, we're going to be doing that. A lot of times that can reduce kids' anxiety about
Shepherd them through
upcoming.
those changes. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely, shepherding them through those changes, I think, is a great way to manage anxiety. As with many of us, it's understood that there might be an increase in mood symptoms, given the situation that's going on. So we would want to do our best to reduce anxiety as it relates to changes. I also wanted to highlight that many ABA clinics are continuing to provide services, at least via teleconference. Not so much ABA services, which typically really do have to be face-to-face, but more so in terms of parent training. So they do many places in town, such as Southwest Autism and Behavioral Solutions, or places such as Autism Spectrum Therapies. They are continuing, to the best of my knowledge, I'm not affiliated with those clinics, but to the best of my knowledge in
Doctor,
my conversation. Yes.
thank you so much for sharing. We have just about 30 seconds left. Sean, I think you had one more
Yeah.
question.
Well, yeah, just if those resources, if we want to be able to get the ball rolling on maybe being able to stem the tide as parents to be able to fill this gap while we're in this situation, where do we go?
So I think so. My clinic, Silver State Psychology, we do provide evaluation services. The best way to get evaluated is through a neuropsychological evaluation or a psychological evaluation. There's a lot of importance currently placed on early evaluation and early treatment. So the sooner that an individual can get evaluated, and the sooner they can start treatment, typically the research suggests that the
The
outcomes are
results, yeah.
better the younger that kids start. So if not now, given the current situation, then certainly once the restrictions, the COVID-19 restrictions are loosened a little bit, I
Thank
do want
you.
to encourage parents to come in and get evaluated either at my practice or at one of the other places in town.
Doctor, it's great having you.
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us.
On behalf of everyone at Silver State Psychology, thank you for inviting me.
Total pleasure. And his website, phone number right there on your screen. We thank him so much for joining us today on The Morning Blend.